All right, so this is episode 1 of the Great Streaking Buffalo, and this is a podcast that basically just takes a look at Buffalo sports, but also the NHL, the NFL, most major professional sports or college because that could be pretty fun. But being in the Western New York area, we obviously will have more of a focus on our local teams, along with some local issues or trends or just things that we're seeing or just other things for fun because we're a streak in Buffalo over here. My co-host most weeks is going to be Matthew Gordon, who is the head brewer at 12 Gates Brewing, so make sure you check them out. They are fantastic. Tony Fiorello, who works for Buffalo Sports Page and Western New York Athletics, will also be on regularly. And we'll have some other people and just kind of see where we go from here. So we're aiming for at most 30 to 40 minutes. Take a walk, listen to this. We will have the ability for you to reach out to us. Please yell at us or agree with us. Either one works. But we look forward to sharing our thoughts on sports with you. All right, so to start this podcast, I have Matthew Gordon. Jesus. He is very exuberated to be on the podcast. He is also the head brewer at 12 Gates Brewing, so check it out. Awesome fucking place to go to. He's a great brewer, won some awards last year. So, Matt, what's happened, man?
Hey, Craig, how's it going? Happy to be here.
Could be better. The Bills did not win the Super Bowl again.
Weird, because, that's what's supposed to happen when you're the favorite, and I bet money on them to, do that. I expect them to at least be in the game, but apparently not.
Yeah, I definitely hear you with that. So let's just start off. I will say this with the Super Bowl. First off, congrats to KC. But both teams, we've talked about this. You watch football, and that was a game that was what you want to see with your eyes. If you remember that Rams-Patriots Super Bowl, you're like, oh, maybe it'll be sweet. It was a 13-3 dud. And it's not just because it was New England. Obviously, Pat Mahomes, they're running stuff right now. But, that was a fun, good offensive game. It was entertaining. It's what you want to see in football.
You know what was nice about it is that you saw different plays working. You saw, just those two touchdowns that KC had, you know what I'm talking about, where they did the same play but flipped it, as if, they hit the R2 button in Madden or something. Reverse play. One to Tony and one to Sky Moore.
Yep.
Fantastic notice by Andy Reid, knowing what the Eagles' defense was going to do in that situation and just purely taking advantage of it. It was spectacular to watch. And of course, I immediately am like, why can't the Bills do that? Why do only we just throw these 15-yard in routes or just these 10-yard curls or, these Hail Mary 50%ers that don't seem to always connect?
Absolutely. And one of the things watching the Eagles, so it's a fourth down play. What do? Jalen Hurts, they have two guys behind him, and they just push forward. Josh Allen's the size of a building. And there's times, and this wasn't this isn't just this year. You go back even last year sometimes where it's like the Pittsburgh game, and we're running a sweep play on 4th and 1, and it's like, why are we doing this? Sometimes we make it harder. Watch as a Bills fan watching this team, it's like you're making it harder than you need to be. Look at sometimes simplicity is your friend.
Absolutely, and watching the Bills for 20 years now, we had front row seats to Tom Brady doing a hurry-up on 3rd and 1 or 3rd and inches and just pushing the pile with that weak little non-strawberry eating body of his. So, it's like, okay, we can do the same thing, or look at that. The Eagles pulling a play that nobody's ever done before, just designing, hey, you know what, why don't we have these guys, go ahead and push the quarterback or push the pile?
Yeah.
And rumor has it that play is supposed to be illegal next year or the year after, something like that. I believe that play is supposed to be going away.
Yeah, Wade Phillips came out and said, an amazing defensive coordinator, used to be the head coach of the Bills. He's awesome, but he even said, he's like, this can't be legal. And I have to say, I get it, because the defense, it feels like defense has been neutered across the league of what they can do, but then offenses are doing some crazy things from pick routes to this. And I get it. The NFL is geared for offense, which is great. Like I said, watching that game, just both teams, the A.J. Brown pass was awesome. I'm like, great. They let it rip. I thought it's just fun. It's part of the fun of football. So, real quick, a lot of stuff came out about the end of the game when it came to the refs. And I get it. My thought with it was, well, listen, it's tough because watching the game where there wasn't a lot of flags, they let them play to make that call. But then the flip side is the call was there and they had to make it. Does that make sense? Like if you don't call it, it's almost either way. You know what I mean? It is the right call, but it's like given the way the game was, it just sucked all the drama out of what was an excellent game.
Absolutely. Like if that flag is thrown for the Bills, like we want that call all day long. However, just watching the game, I didn't want the call, but at the same time, if you don't make the call, then you are blatantly giving the Eagles an opportunity to tie the game, and then they only tie the game because of that call. It was just a bad spot all around.
Yeah.
There's no win situation right there.
I'll say this: the refs owe James Bradbury like a big thing of pizza, some chicken wings or something, because he came out right after. Is like, yeah, I did it. I tried to get away with it, and I think had he have not done that, you would have seen a larger outrage. But the fact he actually backed off, kind of helped to back off some of the pressure, was big. I know the year prior in the Super Bowl when the Rams-Bengals played, people were like, well, I can't believe they called it. But that game was far more penalty prone. There was a lot more ticky-tack, things that were or weren't called. I think what just stunk was it was for such a great game, it just, it did suck all the air right out of it, which was frustrating as a viewer, even if it's
absolutely. And unfortunately, like if that route is just a out, let's say, and not an out and up, I don't think the flag is thrown at all.
Yep. Absolutely.
It was going for a touchdown, and he was 10 yards behind the ball, even though he didn't really hold him that much, but to me it was totally uncatchable no matter what. But again, it's a hold, so you call it.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick stop real quick and add Tony Fiorello on. He works for Buffalo Sports Page in Western North Athletics, so we'll be right. All right, so we got Tony Fiorello on. He works for Buffalo Sports Page as well as Western New York Athletics. How you doing today, Tony?
Good, man. What's going on?
Not a lot. So Matt and I, we had started off talking about the Super Bowl. Great game. Little bit of an energy sucker finish just with the fact that there is the call. But one of the things we had started to dive into, or we're jumping into, was the Bills with this. How you watch this game and it's beautiful on the eyes if you love good offenses because you have these beautiful design routes. Matt was talking about the Sky Moore play. You have the Eagles with Hurts pushing people at the line. You played a little bit of football. What did you see from this game, conceptually, of things that the Bills really should work on?
Well, if you're talking specifically about how Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy's approach differs from somebody like Ken Dorsey's, one of the things I'd love to see Dorsey take from the Chiefs is not even necessarily concepts of trying to get Travis Kelce open, because as anybody can tell from watching a Chiefs game, that it seems like they always find a way to get Kelce open pretty much every game. But just the way that they use motion and different shiftings and formations, because if you notice, Andy Reid is the absolute master at getting second and third level defenders to get them working against each other, because the way that they use motion and be able to get them to use leverage against them, it's absolutely second to none. That's one thing I'd love to see Dorsey be able to use and be able to take from somebody like Andy Reid, because he's a master at that. And until a team is able to figure that out, and learn how to defend that, Kansas City's going to be running the AFC pretty much for as long as they have Mahomes and Reid.
I mean, Matt, I think you would agree with this. It felt like as the season progressed, most weeks where the Bills lined up and they were in maybe a 3-wide package with a tight end or something, and there was no motion. It was very, we're going to try to do this, attack you straight on it, but there wasn't anything in terms of dressings, player movement, you name it. What would you say?
I mean, the only person I ever saw moving in the backfield was McKenzie, and he served That was his only purpose in the offense, was just to go in motion whenever he was on the field. Basically, it seemed like. And, I mean, I already touched on it. It seems like 50% of the offense is just a 8 to 12 yard curl, hook route. The other, 40% is Josh, go ahead and run. And then you got 5% of just chucking it deep. Which, I mean, granted, Josh did connect on several of those, so I mean, that's awesome. But there's just no creativity, let's say, in this offense. And we know by watching, there's no play design for yards after the catch. I still can't comprehend how Travis Kelce in the Super Bowl is able to do a 15-yard across the middle route and be wide open and be able to run after the catch, too. It blows my mind.
I mean, they don't even move Diggs into the slot. I mean, Tony, I know you've talked about this in some of your pieces. You look at some of the best offenses, as we saw in football, and they will put their best players in spots. Slot's an easy place because it's an easy pass. You can usually break some things off of it and get yards after catch. And it felt like it was just keep Diggs to the outside 24/7, which probably isn't the case. I'm sure if we watched all the film, there'd be more than that. But
like one example, just to piggyback on that. I mean, I know there have been a couple of times where they did put Diggs in the slot. I remember that last drive against Detroit on Thanksgiving where Diggs caught that big. I think it was might have been on a post or a dig route over the middle. He was out of the slot in that one. But I mean, as you know, having a chess piece like Diggs, just moving him around at different spots. I mean, that would definitely help the Bills an awful lot. And one other thing, just to kind of get back to that whole usage of motion thing. There's a guy that I follow on Twitter. He goes his handlebar, I believe, is Honest NFL. He used to be a pro scout and an advanced scout for the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was there, I believe, when Andy Reid was there. He was there when Chip Kelly was there. When Doug Peterson was there. This is the notes that he wrote on pre-snap motion. The Chiefs utilize this as well as any team in the NFL, and they do it for very specific reasons. First, it forces defenses to communicate so they can recalibrate the coverage based on the resulting formation. Second, it can be used to give the motion man a free release with leverage off the line. Third, if the defense is adept at presenting a man zone look pre-snap and playing something else, it can give the offense another indicator to confirm the coverage that they've inferred through their pre-snap process. Whether you're running with motions or bumping them, everyone needs to be completely on the same page as they process the motion. Where they end up at the snap dictates how you recalibrate your defensive structure to account for the motion, especially if it's a change of strength that alters how your coverage will rotate. So, yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I'd absolutely love Dorsey to start using more, whether it's jet, orbit, return motion, all that stuff. Those could definitely use much more of that. But on the other hand, some quarterbacks like it, some don't. I'm not sure how much Josh likes it, but I mean, whatever makes his job easier, I'm for it.
Yeah, I think one of the things with looking at the big picture, if you went back to last offseason, the Bills, nobody wanted Dorsey gone. Everyone was like, we got to keep this guy. And, I do think back to 2018, 2019, there was legitimate frustration with Dable at the time. And especially, I think people, we romanticize the 21 Bills, they're so close. But realistically, I mean, until the postseason came, there were still people questioning Dable. And then they had a perfect offensive offseason, or postseason, I should say. So, I think the frustration is they have a Super Bowl window right now. You have a quarterback who is, a godsend in terms of talent of what he can do. They have a lot of good players, even if they lose some with attrition. We're now letting the offensive coordinator grow. I can understand why there's some fan apathy with that.
Right, and I can totally understand what McDermott is trying to say too. I mean, if we're being honest here, if you look at the stats, what were they? I mean, second in scoring, second in passing, top 5 in almost every in most categories. So it's not as if it's not as if Dorsey was awful. You know what I mean? And I totally get the idea of wanting to let a coach grow, but people saying that they want to fire Dorsey or whatever, bring in an experienced guy or whatever. You don't always want that. I mean, sometimes it may be better to let the guy get better, but it's all up to the coaching staff. Obviously, they know more than we do. So,
Well,
what McDermott says.
I think this leads into, behind the scenes, Matt and I, you, Tony, we've talked about this offseason for the Bills. I look at it this way. Since Josh Allen got here, 2018 was a bare bones, nothing exists. Josh, good luck and learn the NFL. 19, they added, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Morse, Quinn Spain, Feliciano. They beefed up the offense, gave him targets, things that made his life easier. 2020, they had Stephon Diggs. I think Gabriel Davis was either that year or 2019. And then they haven't done anything. And, the NFL, it's a short time span where, players age very quickly, as we saw, unfortunately, with Cole Beasley and John Brown, even though they came back. They're going to invest in this team in terms of picks and what they can do with some cap space. So Dorsey's not going to have, this is, I don't want to be too crazy, but this is a bit of a make it or break it situation. I think you both would agree with for this upcoming season with what they will do to try to help him and Josh out to make their lives easier.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
Absolutely. It is. I mean, what are we doing here? We're giving McDermott for like next year. Do we give him the year after that? I mean, he's built an absolutely great clubhouse, chemistry with everybody, top to bottom, and it's a win now. And I know we were being, I don't know what we can call it, spoiled. We spent 20 years of looking at garbage, and now we're expecting Super Bowls here. But to say that we're getting good years out of 13-4 and losing in the divisional round and losing in the conference finals, no, we got to get to the Super Bowl. That's the only goal right now. I have no problem saying that it's Super Bowl or bust. Again, Craig, you already said we've got our window, and we've got to hit our window.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys this, though. I thought about this with just the way this season played out versus last year. If I were to look at the play of the teams at the end of the season and I didn't know their record, I would have said the 2021 Bills looked like a 13-4 team, and the 2022 team this year was more representative of an 11-6 team that has talent, but the struggles really started to show. What are your guys' thoughts with that?
Absolutely. I mean, you totally made the comment when they were 6-3, saying that this is barely a wild card team. And Diggs coming in saying he just did a recent interview saying that after week 9, for some reason the offense was just not going in the right direction and not clicking properly. And I don't know if that's a Dorsey thing of him maybe using the old ways for the first couple of weeks and then building up to his ways, and then we got to see his ways in the second half of the season. I mean, if that's the case, then we're in for a rough start to 2023. But I'm interested to see what happens.
What do you think, Tom?
Well, I mean, the thing with Dorsey, what we were talking about is, I mean, obviously, we all know as long as you've got Josh, they'll have a chance. I mean, it's pretty much like that with every team that's got that rarefied quarterback under center. As long as you've got them, they'll always have a chance. But at the same time, like you said, you always want to be building around that team, around that guy. And you pointed out that 2019 offseason, bringing in Beasley, Brown, drafting Dawson Knox that year, bringing in Reed to help the offensive line. If we're being honest here, bringing in those guys like Morse and other guys and whatever, they were really more or less patchwork guys. They were more or less Band-Aids that they were able to put over those holes for a few years. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see what they can do, given who's available at wide receiver. I mean, it's not going to be much. But, bringing in a guy like Adam Henry that can only help in their efforts to be able to bring in a guy like Odell Beckham and hiring Aaron Cromer where he can work with that group, which he did. He worked with them for a year, and he could see who he wants to keep, who he doesn't want to keep, and who he wants to bring in, whether it be at the draft, trade, free agency, whatever. He'll now know which spots that he can upgrade at. So I'm very curious to see what Bean can do with given who's available and who And not only who's available, but with knowing what areas they can operate at.
All right, just to kind of close out the 2022 Bills, one thing I think we've all kind of seen, I'm with Matt, I think, Tony, you're with us. It's Super Bowl or bust with the Bills. And that expectation, I think, is fair because you look at the team they built, the quarterback they have especially, and it's a quarterback-driven league. And as a city, we've not won a title since, the AFL days. So I think that's cool. I think that's what the expectation should be. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy successes along the way. You can't point out, like Josh still had another great year, and especially everything with his elbow, you name it. But one thing I have wondered, because there has been some really fiery takes from people, some maybe a little borderline overboard, where I've seen stuff of people saying the Bills are going to be, the worst team in the division without Josh Allen. Some things where it's kind of, even with Josh Allen, it's like, okay, we got to simmer down. What I have wondered is I feel like some fan apathy that the 21-year, we were almost gypped. In Buffalo sports, I would say there's been 3 times we've had teams where people felt like either it was we should have won the title, and I would say the Sabres in 99 with the foot in the crease. Lots of people have said the Sabres would have won the cup had that goal not have counted. Obviously, the 05-06 Sabres, which the injuries, and then I think the 21 Bills, a lot of people have this belief they were winning the Super Bowl had they have not had the 13 seconds. And I think that bled into this year where, we're just supposed to win the Super Bowl. And I think when they didn't, it made the fall for a lot of people, frankly, worse than had they just taken it as a regular season. What do you take with that?
Not only that, but like I've said since that Cincinnati game, people automatically had it in their minds if they had beaten the Chiefs that they were going to go and beat the pants off of Cincinnati, go to the Super Bowl, and beat the Rams. I'm not so sure about that now, having watched what they did against Cincinnati, because people don't. We already know who the Bengals have, but look at their coaching staff. Dorsey got outclassed by Lou Anarumo in pretty much every area, and if we're being honest here, it was the same thing with Frazier going against a guy like Zach Taylor. They knew what they were trying to do, and they just adjusted to it, and the Bills couldn't. So,
the final was 27-14. Matt, you were at the game, right? 27-14.
It's all a blur. I can't tell you the exact many games I went to.
The final score was not indicative of the fact the Cincinnati offense, if they wanted to probably put up 35, could have at that point. It's across the board. It was a complete failure. And it's one of those things, like sometimes people talk about, would you rather lose, by a lot or a little? And sometimes when you lose by a little, it's a lot easier to hang on to things and say, well, if we just had this or that, where, they got their butts cleaned, and they also, it exposed, some true weaknesses that people had been saying all season, from the wide receivers to yards after catch to, as Matt said, screenplays. And it happened to be the day which apparently everything came to roost at the exact same moment for them.
Yeah. And, here's the other thing. If they had beaten Cincinnati, by some miracle beat Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, I have no doubt in my mind if they had played either Philadelphia or San Francisco in the Super Bowl, they would have got crushed. And it's at that point, it's just like, why even bother? You know what I mean? If you want to go that far, you go that far to win.
Yeah.
So, God, that would have been awful. Super Bowl. We all know what probably would have happened if we sit back and actually look at it. Like, yeah, our offensive line is not good, and just thinking about sacks from Bosa or the entire Philly line, like, my God, I would have been so angry.
Right, exactly. So, and I've talked to my dad about that, and he said, and as a guy who went through all 4 of those Super Bowl losses, he said, I'd rather lose in the second round of the playoffs than go to the Super Bowl and have them lose again.
Yeah.
If you're going to the Super Bowl, you got the Bills have to go win. They have no choice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, and know what game it makes me think of? It was the Titans game in 21. Josh Allen, 80% of the game was just running like a deer, but because he's a demigod and can make a billion great plays, the Bills should have won that game. And it was like every time they got the lead, something went wrong on defense. He comes back and leads, and it's bad to say, but the best case scenario, I think, in the Super Bowl against either of those two teams would have been Josh Allen has them down to like a last second maybe type situation on one side of the ball or the other. And you should be thankful for that because, the offensive line play. I mean, Roger Saffold. There's a clip online of where he is beating off the line, and within a second, he's already into the backfield at Josh. And I don't care how good your quarterback is. I mean, Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl against Tampa got wrecked, and Pat Mahomes is without a doubt the best quarterback right now in this sport. And even he couldn't handle that pressure, and they had to beef up their line. So.
Yeah, I mean, Saffold was brought in as a Band-Aid, too. You know what I mean? It's a year or two until the Bills could either draft a younger replacement or sign somebody who's younger. So, like I said, I mean, the wide receiver group isn't all that great coming in, but the offensive line, at least, that could at least be worked on, you know?
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on. So the interesting news of the day, Adam Henry was signed as the wide receivers coach, and the big thing about this is he has coached Odell Beckham on 3 separate occasions, including in college. Boys, do you want Odell Beckham or not?
Man, I'll let you go ahead first.
Yeah. I mean, it goes against. So for me, to get Odell, does he replace Gabe, or is he going in the slot and now Shakir gets moved down the list? Because I really like Shakir, and like Gabe Davis and Isaiah Hodgins, he did not have the opportunities in his first year at all.
Yep.
And like he's a great slot guy. He should have been doing punt and kick returns all year.
Yep.
Because that's what he did in college. He was very good at it. And he's got the speed. He's got, the breakawayness. I mean, I don't understand what happened, why he wasn't used more in the slots, and why we had, the running motion guy, McKenzie, who was just running motion all year.
to be fair, some receivers better, adjust better to the pros than others. Most rookie receivers, they don't adjust well to the NFL within their first year. Sometimes it takes a year or two, and sometimes they just break out in year 3. That was how it was for a long time with most receivers. And I understand in this day and age, teams throw the ball more, so technically, it should be easier, but it still isn't that way with every receiver. So,
I think though where Matt's going though with it.
I understand that, but with Odell, I mean, again, is he replacing Davis? Because if he's not replacing Davis, then it's like we got Diggs and Odell. Is Odell even a slot guy? I'm sure they've all, except for maybe Davis, played slot before, Diggs and Odell. But I mean, it's just where does he go? And is he going to have issues with not getting the ball as much? And then it's like, why do we pay Dawson Knox this much money if he's not going to be doing anything now because it's Odell and Diggs and Davis and Cook?
Yeah, and to be honest, don't forget when Odell went to the Rams, they had Cooper Kupp. He was getting, the vast majority of the targets, and he was really more just the secondary guy. So I don't think he would have a problem coming in being that secondary guy to Stephon Diggs.
And he was supposed to be actually their wide receiver 3 because they had Robert Woods, and the day after they signed Beckham, he tore his knee, and that it kind of almost fell into place perfectly for the Rams. I think what's tough with Beckham is this. If he had even the way he played for the Rams for the few games he was there, if I knew I had that for 2 years, you sign him to a 3-year deal, whatever, for year 3. If you told me I had that level of production and talent for, those 2 years, I would feel really good about the Bills' offense, assuming they help the offensive line. If he's in the slot with Davis, you can still put Shakir as a wide receiver 4 to run slot options and things, let him grow from a really good receiver. What scares me with Beckham is he's probably going to want a big chunk of change. Is that where you want to invest the money? Because they only have so much cap space. They're going to have to open up as it is, and if they do some things to really open it up, you still only have a finite amount.
Yeah. And, like you said, it all depends on how much money he wants. I mean, if you pay him, you're paying what's the saying? You're paying Peter to rob from somebody else. You know what I mean? If you do that, you're going to be taking money away from other positions. You might have to let other people go in order to be able to squeeze them in.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm attracted to the idea that USC wide receiver Addison, who won the Blinknikoff Award, and he's a superb talent. And you have seen these highly drafted first or second round wide receivers that come in and they just torch it. And you add him. Diggs is aging. You might have your new wide receiver one with, as Matt brought up, Shakir, who I would have loved to have seen more on the field. They didn't even put him on the field. With Davis, you have a much younger team. Like Beckham might give you a higher upside for 2 years if he's healthy, but Addison long term, that might pay a lot more dividends. For example, I don't know if they're going to get him or anything.
Yeah. No, by the way, that thing was robbing Peter to pay Paul. So, but yeah, you know what I mean. It's just. It all depends on how healthy he is. Does he still have that burst that he had before? You know what I mean? It's just a lot of questions with Odell. And if the Bills can work him out, and if they feel like he can contribute in a meaningful way, and if Beckham's willing to accept a certain type of contract, then I'd say by all means look into it. But I mean, me personally, I'm not the biggest Odell Beckham fan, but if he can help them, I say go for it. Depending on certain factors.
Right on.
I enjoy Addison out of USC. I just don't expect him to be there at pick 26.
Well, I'm at the point with the offense. I would like to see them. If they said they had to give up next year an extra pick to move up, I'm at that point to do that because one of the things I keep looking at, Stephon Diggs is 32, if I'm not mistaken, or is he 30?
I thought he was like 30.
30? I think maybe it's 30. Maybe it's 30. Right.
I believe he's 28 or 29.
No, I think he's turning 30 this year. I thought he was turning 30 this year. And the numbers on wide receivers, once they hit 30, even elite ones, we have a few years left of him being a good to dominant receiver. And you see how wide quarterbacks take a step back, even if they're great, when they don't have that target. And this seems to be another good draft of wide receivers. I'm okay with paying a little bit to have to get that guy if it means then you open another 8-10 years with a really great wide receiver. That's long-term planning. Plus, you get him under cost control for a bunch of years too.
Yeah, and by the way, yep, he's 29. He'll be 30 in late November.
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay, we got at least 3 years of them. I
mean,
I'm all in on. Give me the second or third best guard in the draft at that pick, honestly. Like, that line is so bad. We can find a receiver almost anywhere. Just give me that line. I need to fix that line, please.
I also think bringing in a right tackle to compete with Spencer Brown for the starting job, but David Quisenberry does not count. Bringing in another right tackle to try and compete with Spencer Brown for the starting job, that would be another good area to look at.
Yeah,
absolutely. Bring in 5 new offensive linemen, let them all go at it. Give me the best ones.
I mean, I've said this draft picks 1 through 4. If it's 3 offensive linemen and 1 wide receiver in there, I'm perfectly fine with that. Because that's
literally the only image I have in my mind right now of Spencer Brown is him getting his tail kicked on that nickel blitz by Mike Hill, because he totally whipped on that.
That was a great miss there.
We're going to move to the Sabres here for a few, but one last topic that I just want to bring up, which Tom Brady ruined football. And I'll explain. And we know this is Bills fans directly, but I mean it like this. If you take Tom Brady out of how we judge quarterbacks in terms of Super Bowls wins, the vast majority of quarterbacks get 1 or 2 Super Bowl appearances. And maybe Mahomes is like the second coming of this, but like I've seen some stuff out here, about like Allen and his window. Peyton Manning did not make a Super Bowl for 9 seasons or 8 or 9 seasons. Like, there's tons of quarterbacks who the time they broke through it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not using this as an excuse for this as much as like we don't know what this window may or may not be of when the breakthrough is, but it's like we all got to settle down here because it's really difficult. Like, Brady went 11 times, 12 times. He has 6 rings. If you would have if you would have told me Aaron Rodgers, when he won his first Super Bowl, would never go back, I would have said, you're fucking lying to me, to be honest. Because Aaron Rodgers, watching him, and then the years after that, he was amazing. And it is so difficult.
Championship games and losing for crazy reasons.
Yeah, and it's like Brady has kind of he is what he is. He's incredible, whatever. But the amount of success he had, I feel like that just across the board at the quarterback position, it's so difficult. Drew Brees won one time. He should have won that other year in the Rams, penalty and all that in 2018. But
that one and the Minneapolis Miracle too.
Yeah, it's just it's really difficult to get there, and that is my one fear with the Bills is it's like, okay, if they break through, like everybody's talking about the Eagles, their window. Look at how many teams that have lost the Super Bowl go back and win the Super Bowl, and you're going to look for a really long time to like the 71 Dolphins, which next year they won undefeated. It's really difficult to make it there.
Dan Marino. I understand this is more than 30 years ago, and I know it was pre-unrestricted free agency and pre-salary cap. But he made it to the Super Bowl in his second year, loses to Joe Montana on the 49ers, never gets back there again. He had to deal with Jim Kelly and the Bills for twice a year for God knows how long, for 10 plus years. So it's just so hard. And when you look at teams like the dynastic teams like Brady and the Patriots, and I'm not saying the Chiefs or
Steelers, the Niners, yeah.
But it's just so difficult for a lot of quarterbacks to get there.
Absolutely.
And one other thing, you brought up Peyton Manning getting there in his 9th year, right? Now that you mentioned it, I just started to think about something. Right, when Peyton became an elite quarterback, like let's say around 2003, right? Because he was in the league for 5 years before that, right? And he was everybody saw him as a very good quarterback, but not great. Right around the time when he won his first MVP in 2003, he went AFC Championship game, second round. So who does that remind you of right now? Bills.
Absolutely. And my thing, and this is where like I do understand the fan apathy, is this like it's so difficult to get there. We might only get one shot with Josh, and I hope they at least get a shot. And some of the coaching decisions, it's like, dear God, like I wasn't on the Dorsey get rid of him per se bandwagon. If they did, I understood it. The Frazier piece scares me because this defense, since they have had Josh Allen as their starting quarterback, they have had one playoff year where I looked and I said the defense, I think, did their job, and that was in 2019. When they played the Texans, they kept them in that game because the offense couldn't get it going. And since then, I would say the offense, up until this year, has played pretty well in the playoffs. Everybody failed this year. But the defense at both games against Kansas City, like the first year, okay, it's a learning year. The second year, our offense went toe-to-toe with them, and your defense, you played scared again. And that's what scares me, I think, with Josh is it's more he's probably going to get his crack, but that's no guarantee he'll ever get another one. I mean, you can name so many great quarterbacks, and recently, I mean, some really great quarterbacks that they at least have a ring, but that doesn't mean anything, that you're guaranteed another one after that. So I don't know, Matt, what do you think on that?
Absolutely. Peyton Manning is Omahaing his way to the Hall of Fame. It's fantastic. Yeah, that was very frustrating because I was a big Peyton Manning fan, and he just always ran into Brady outside in the cold, and it drove me nuts for so many years. Oh man, but yeah. I mean, like we said, their windows now. They gotta figure this thing out and get it moving.
Yeah,
we're gonna be moving on to the Sabres.
That's a good leeway into. So we're going to move into our Sabres portion here. And
by the way, all this talk about the Bills right now, it makes me want to crack open a beer. Anybody else drinking a beer right now?
Oh, we always drink beer around here. You should know that. Gordon, you got any beers from 12 Gates you would recommend people to drink that you've made recently?
Totally, all of them.
What's your new fave? Do you have one?
Oh, I got delicious Maibach that's out there called First Bloom. I think it's the only Maibach right now in the market. And Lululemon just came out.
Oh, that's a popular one. For our listeners at home, you want to describe that?
Blueberry, lemon, and lavender sour. Oh, man, it's so good.
Actually, that one is really good. My wife likes that one. So, all right. So Sabres. I don't know about you guys. You can see the progress is there. Okay, so I'll just say it. Okay, fine. They're the highest score. Or they were the highest scoring team in hockey. I don't know after these last 4 games of completely, collapsing like a dying star if they still are. But they've obviously they have a great offense, but I feel like we keep playing Groundhog Day. We could go back 5 years ago, and it feels like as soon as we start approaching March, this team, when the games start to matter, they've lost 4 in a row, and I feel like I understand the playoffs are difficult. The Eastern Conference is a complete bear right now with what they're dealing with, but come on, guys! I just want to see them competitive through March, where they're in a spot or they're right there, because I think for a lot of these youngsters, this would be great for their confidence. I don't want to have another March. I understand playoffs would be pretty tough, but another March where we get to March and it doesn't matter. And it just keeps feeling like Groundhog Day a little bit with them with that. And I understand, like I said, they are different. They have a lot of really good young players, but that is a little bit of a fear I have right now as we're going right back down the same rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean that's what most people wanted from the Sabres going into the season, right? To show that what they had from March and April last year, to keep just to keep that momentum going. I know obviously I know that momentum between seasons isn't really much of a thing that you can really continue, but at the same time, just to take the lessons that they learned from that March and April hot stretch last year and continue on. And everybody. Really, what most people wanted was just for them to, we really don't like those words, in the hunt. But by the Sabres standards, where they never were even within sniffing distance of the playoffs for that pretty much like the entire drought. This is a lot of progress, and it's actually a very promising sign. And they're doing that, and whether they make the playoffs or not, this is still a very, very good sign for their future. So that's where I'm at on that right now.
Oh man, here we go.
I know that's gonna be pretty something where it's about to come to nothing else.
I'm pacing on my nice little rug in my living room. This team, they're doing exactly what I expected. They're the number 10 team in the East. They're trying for a playoff spot. They played, let's call them easy games to start off, and now we're trying to get into it. Now everybody's doing their playoff push. We've seen it for several years with even different groups of players, that this team just does not know how to push to that playoff level and that expectancy to win games against these weaker teams. And for some reason, we're expecting something different this year. But no, this isn't a great offense. We have a good offense. I don't care that the numbers say that we have the number 1 goal-scoring team in the league. Guess what? That's the first, 4 months? Now we're playing real hockey.
Yep.
And we're getting our asses kicked.
Yep.
And it's totally expected from me, because I've been waiting for this to happen this whole time.
Yep.
And when your offense just revolves around Page and has Skinner done anything recently?
No, he's been quiet. Tuck has even been quiet. Cousins has been quiet. Cousins and Dahlin have obviously been good.
We've been waiting for Krebs and Quinn and Paterka, and they're all being now fed down to the bottom lines.
Yep.
It's extremely annoying to me. It's what I expected as well.
And this was my fear, Matt. So before the All-Star break, they went in and they were like a point out of the playoffs, all this, and then they did not play for 10 days. That's you played a lot of hockey. That's a long time to be off the rink. But the other thing is then it reopened the gap of how far back they are. Now, right now, they have 4 games in hand on Washington, which if by some miracle they won all of them and caught them, they would be technically in the final wildcard spot. But that's a different type of pressure, like you said. Everyone's fighting now. You really have to be there. And sure, they've made progress, but like this is the real hockey. Like that's great that you can score. It's great you can do this. Like this is go time. This is where you guys got to start to put it together and really kind of grind some of these games out. And I think their up tempo style at points now is starting to catch up to them where teams are like, fine, the good ones we're playing, you're going to play like that. We'll wait for you to make a mistake. That Calgary game, Buffalo jumped out 2-0, and you could see Calgary had their opportunities. It's like, that's fine. You'll mess up, and they messed up and got throttled at home, pretty fierce. So,
yeah, and it's not even just the secondary guys who've been quiet recently, like Skinner and Tuck and Krebs and everybody else. I mean, beyond Tage and Cousins and other people, it's just really that. But defensively, they gotta shore up. You know what I mean? Because you can't just keep relying on Darlene and a rookie in Power and Samuelson to be your whole defense. They need more depth there, and they need to get better play out of that in front of UPL.
That's correct. And you've got to trade Casey Middlestat to get that D guy.
Yep.
Because I'm tired of having this guy on our team who can't do a pull-up. It's driving me nuts. He's proven nothing since he's been here.
Well,
get rid of him. His value's almost absent now because we've waited too long.
I would also add, they have this prospect, Devin Levi. He's awesome. This kid looks great, but there is absolutely zero guarantee that he comes to Buffalo and continues being like goalies typically take a lot of time, even if he doesn't take a lot of time. Like, Luukkonen has had some good moments. Anderson is what he is. I mean, across the board here, I get the slow, patient approach, but at some point with the style of hockey that they play, and at least it's entertaining. I mean, God, the last bunch of years, it's been really hard. So I at least appreciate it is a fun team to watch, but you're going to be sitting in neutral, like Matt said, and once you hit the road to adversity, which is the playoffs. I mean, the Stanley Cup is the hardest trophy to win in sports because it's an incredibly difficult path to get there. To even make the playoffs requires actually really earning your way through. And I don't see this as a team right now that, at least as they're going right now and what they've shown, that they're going to be able to earn that right to even be close enough for it.
Not at all. No.
So.
And to piggyback on that, by the way, the league needs to go back to a 1 versus 8, 1 versus 7.
Yeah.
Like they used to. Just doing the whole divisional thing and
it's awful.
The first 2 rounds, it makes zero sense when they implemented it like 10 years ago, whatever it was. It still doesn't make any sense now. You know what I mean? Because
it is the worst thing in professional sports playoffs. It is the NHL has managed to create the worst playoff structure, which is awful considering how great the NHL playoffs are. They're so entertaining every game. And listen, obviously we hate the Maple Leafs. It's great to see them lose, but it's ridiculous that they had to play Tampa Bay last year. They were one of the best, probably 5 best teams in hockey, top 3 teams in hockey. They should not be playing them. If I want to let Toronto lose in the conference finals, where it's even more glorious to see them lose, but at least give them a proper outage than the first round, because your divisional structure is so messed up that this is how it ends up being. I'm sorry. It was pathetic.
To be honest with you, it should have been a bare minimum second round matchup or a conference final matchup. But instead we had to get in the first round? Like, fine. There's something really wrong.
What I don't understand is
makes no sense.
The NHL made this change. I mean, half the fun, you guys remember growing up as kids, watching the Sabres play the Flyers. We had an amazing rivalry because we played them a bunch because it was 1 versus 8. Like, the division structure doesn't matter because, don't worry, I hate Boston, we hate Toronto, we hate Montreal, we hate Ottawa. It's not going to go away if we're playing Philadelphia, who we ended up having some amazingly great series, some great moments, and sometimes the Sabres lost, but there's a lot of great stuff because of that structure. And with how it currently is, you don't get that, which is just annoying. Like, fix it. Just fix it. It's an easy fix. But that's the NHL for you.
I think Gary Bettman and Bill Daly are absolutely fixated on rivalries and stuff like that, and it's been like that for 10 plus years. It's just stop. People talk about expanding the regular season to 84 games and creating 4 divisional games. Like, what is this garbage? Like, why are they so fixated on divisional rivalries? They have enough games against that. Stop it.
Yeah, that's
fine the way it is.
Apparently the divisional games are where they make their most money. So it's the NHL. With that, boys, I'd say that was a good first episode. Any last thoughts or shout-outs you want to throw out there?
Yeah, we should have ended 20 minutes ago.
Oh, Matt, any good events at 12 Gates coming up that you should tell the world?
Any good what?
I said any good events at 12 Gates or things coming up or things. I know last year you guys did like the Rock the Gates in summertime. That was pretty cool. So
June. Yeah, I got nothing.
not till June. All right, people prepare for June. What about you, Tone?
Not much. Just these next two games from Buffalo, from the Sabres are going to tell an awful lot. You know what I mean? We've got Anaheim tonight. We've got San Jose on Saturday. Go on, get those 4 points, please.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've got something. Go Bandits.
Absolutely.
Go Bandits. They got to get back to that title game or the final round again, right?
Yeah, we lost it last year, unfortunately. Hopefully we get it back this year. It'd be nice to see the championship for once in my life besides the Yankees.
Well, and they just lost one of their stud pitchers from what I saw, so that's
I can't talk about that now.
All right, boys. Good chat. We will see y'all on the next podcast that we do.
Oh, actually, one last topic. Do we want to mention anything about Howard Simon and WGR?
Oh yeah. No, shut up, Matt. No,
anything about me.
no. I would just say Howard. What was nice with him, I think today in sports, we have a lot of guys who are experts in things. Howard was really cool because he knew sports, but I think he captured the fan emotion, attitude, and conveyed it in a way that was easy for people to relate to. And I think you need that on sports, on the sports media side of things. So.
Yeah. Howard's one of the guys who never infuriated anybody who listened to GR. So Howard is a great professional for 30 something years, and he'll be good in Buffalo, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, boys, till next time, and we'll be streaking with some Buffaloes. So see you on the out.